Ladies and gentlemen, we're at the Theme 2, Session 6 of our project, Intellectuals and Semantics. We're building a science called volition. The etymology of volition is a Latin verb, volo, meaning I will, from the verb velle, meaning to will. And volition is defined as the act of willing or choosing. In view of the fact that the entire modern world of our physical technology is built upon the standard of truth plus validity, if it's been that successful, then essentially we are saying, why don't we apply it also to the third science called volition? I think this would be a rational approach, but perhaps I should define rational. Rational means that it's both true and valid. Rational means that the same thing is absolute right in physics. So again, rationality, rational, means that the premises are true and the thought process is valid, and simply any action based upon true premises and valid thought processes. A rational person is one who strives always to employ rational thought processes. In other words, arriving at conclusions based on true premises and valid thought process. A rational individual, when he discusses that he is in error, will recognize that it's always in his interest to rectify that error. An intellectual is simply one who always strives toward rationality. Not the person who uses the most fancy words, not the person who read most books, not the person who talks with or without hands. It's simply one who strives toward being rational. And I think that would be a good time to discuss the four types of intellectuals. I'm sure you will enjoy it. The genuine intellectual, the pseudo-intellectual, the part-time intellectual, and the compartmentalized intellectual. The genuine intellectual, although not perfect, he may or may not gone to school, but in any event he strives to base conclusions on true premises and valid thought process. The pseudo-intellectual, the most common type, may have the external trappings and facade of intellectualism. He may have, for example, a sophisticated, esoteric vocabulary that he commonly uses. He may have all the proper buzzwords. If you ask him to define his terms, though, he'll become angry and defiant. The part-time intellectual is, well, the part-time intellectual, and he uses logic and truth when he deems it will benefit him. The compartmentalized intellectual is the most interesting type. Albert Einstein was one of those. That's very common among those in the physical sciences. They use their knowledge of rightness on a compartmentalized basis, if I can say that. And they believe, well, you can't apply this outside of physics, which is a common position among those in the physical sciences. In the field of the physical sciences, Albert Einstein was one of the giant intellectuals of all time. But outside of the physical sciences, he did not apply truth and validity as a standard effectively. Now we shall understand that we simply cannot build anything useful on a false premises. You cannot build anything useful on an invalid thought process. Let's put some precision now into the term wrong. Wrong implies that it is not right. Not right implies either the premises are not true or the thought process is invalid, or both. The standard of rightness, based upon truth and validity, is an absolute standard. That means it's independent of your likes and dislikes. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very difficult for people to accept, but it shall be independent of your emotions, of what you like, what you dislike. The next important question is, will it work effectively outside of physics? Can you use the same standard in the social domain? Can you use this to determine when a man's actions are right? Physics is the simplest subject there is. For example, if a stone is at rest and it has no outside forces acting upon it, it remains where? At rest. If the stone moves, there can be only one reason. There is some force of forces acting upon the stone. And if we know the forces acting upon the stone, we can predict, for example, where and when the stone will land on where it's going to be at any given moment. Man and stone don't have much in common. The distinction is that a stone doesn't have volition. A stone cannot exercise choices. A stone cannot determine where it will land. Once in motion, the stone cannot alter its own course. But a man does have volition. A man can exercise choices. Many things can happen to you in the future, so you will not be able to accurately predict your future. Well, if you cannot even predict your own future, how can someone else, some external observer, predict it for you? Therefore, there is very important distinction between the science of physics and the science of volition. Physics explains the nature of non-volitional, inanimate phenomenon. The science of volition explains the nature of volitional phenomenon. In physics, you are not concerned with a question such as, I wonder if it's moral for the Earth to move in an elliptical orbit around the sun. But in volition, we are. Now, how do you apply the concept of absolute rightness to volition? It is a sad but fact that not all men base their conclusions on true premises and valid thought process. Did you encounter people who do not? As a matter of fact, those who do are the exception. The usual answer of a ruler is, we will make him think and act rationally. However, that presents a problem. How do we make someone think and act rationally? This cannot be done through force. Part of a solution has got something to do with our understanding of a concept called semantic precision, not to be confused with a subject called semantics. The term semantic is a Greek term, semantikos, which means significant meaning. If you comprehend, ladies and gentlemen, just a few basic terms in the course and you understand precision, I claim you will be capable of communication level higher than anything you considered possible. On the other hand, semantic precision by itself is an essential component of a solution, but it is only a component. I am emphasizing the importance of semantic precision because many people think, especially in the early sessions of this course, why are you wasting our time with all these definitions? What many people want is a kind of summary in 25 words or less. Would you like me to give you a summary of the theory of relativity in 25 words or less? Einstein did it in 5 symbols. I am almost sure most of you didn't get it. Same with volition. If I will give you page and a half of the Galampas's property theory, you will understand it on the level of your understanding of the Einstein theory. Back to precision. Without a foundation of semantic precision, communications approaches zero. Without semantic precision, communication approaches zero. And that's where the level of communications is most of the billions of people on this planet. Zero. Their ability to communicate with precision approaches zero. And that applies to both classes. One, those who have gone to school, and two, who have not. You will find that most of your thinking is verbalized. If we think with language, what happens if our semantics, the various terms we use, are imprecise? What can we then say about our thinking? Our thinking will be muddled, confused, and imprecise. Remember that definitions in science are always arbitrary. Let's stop here. When you will talk with someone, relative, friends, kids, bystanders, try to ask them what they mean by different words they are saying. You will find one or two interesting things. Either what they mean is not what you mean, or they do not know what they mean. Until next time.